What's up guys, we're finally back here with another video. I know it's been a minute since I last posted, but if you see the title, it's true. The LS3 is sold and it's making room for the next build iteration. I'd like to throw out a shout out to any of you guys if you stuck around for this whole build that I've done. If not, you guys should check out the last two videos that I've made, which was swapping in the LS3 in the car, getting the results and everything like that. This series that I'll be doing next is kind of a more detailed breakdown than the last time. It's also going to have a few more episodes in it, and I'll try to do a little bit more of the back end stuff of what that I didn't show in the last videos. First, before we go anymore, I'd like to do a few shout outs. John over at Here on Speed to help me with this turbo kit, Rick's Machine Shop who's helped with the motor assembly, and also shout out to the boys at Horsepower Factory Texas. Also another good mention in there is Summit Racing, because they had all the parts in stock ready to go, shipped to my door in a few days without any issues. So yeah, kind of the reason why that I decided to do this whole build was because the LS3 was nice, it made really good power, but I really wanted more power, and that's kind of the story that everybody I guess has. You get used to the power that it has, you want more. It's only a few options. I could have sprayed nitrous on the car, but that kind of was not something I really wanted to do. So I'm a big fan of turbos and boosts, so the Here on Speed kit was really a no-brainer for me. So yeah, that's the main thing with this video. It's going to end up covering more of a breakdown and discussing what's going on. Also, one of the big things with this build is that I want to show that anybody can do this. I'm only 19, but no matter what your age is, you can do this in your garage. You don't need a lift, you don't need any fancy stuff. All I have literally is an engine hoist that's on its last leg, and a lot of parts from Harbor Freight. So other than that, it's pretty simple to end up doing, and anyone can do it, to be honest. So this is the new motor that I picked up for the Corvette. Looking at it, as you can see, it has a lot of sand and it's really dirty. That was something I wasn't expecting to find because the motor came with an intake on top of it. So it was kind of discouraging at this point because I knew that something, this motor had a harsh life. Like, it was going to probably 9 out of 10 be trashed. Most of the time whenever I've taken apart these stock bottom end motors, while they all do have a little bit of crust on them, this one had far more than crust. It looked like it just came out of the Galveston beach. And even in the sand there was literally a live ant colony, so my expectations weren't really that high. So next I was able to clean up the motor, vacuum up all of the sand, and try to get out as much contamination as I could. Even then the motor still had a lot of dirt and grime on it, which is fine, but looking at everything and overall viewing it, I just figured that it was going to be rough. So next I had to pull off the valve covers and the oil pan and everything and check everything out. So once I pulled off the valve covers, the inside of it looked pretty normal-ish, but it did have this kind of not burnt smell, but you could tell the oil wasn't really changed that well, which was not really that promising of a sign. And next, pulling off the oil pan, everything on it looked kind of caked with sludge and whatever, so everything was kind of burnt. I don't know if you would be able to describe it by just literally smelling it. It just smelled burnt. So whoever had this definitely did not change the oil that often, and they definitely, in my opinion, didn't take care of the motor, which for LS it's usually not a big deal, but it confirmed it for this one whenever I pulled off the rod bearings. All of the rod bearings, as you can see in this little picture, looked really rough. So at this point it was kind of a deal breaker for me in a sense, and I decided to try to look for another motor. And after looking for the span of almost a month and a half since this clip was shot, I wasn't able to find anything else. So I went with the next route, and that's what this next part's going to talk about. Alright guys, so today we're picking up on where we last left off, which was discussing the build goals for the car and what the next plan for it's going to end up being. So we discussed the last part of the build, which was kind of taking apart this aluminum 5.3 LS6. Last time I took everything apart, it had a couple bearings on it that were iffy. And further inspecting everything, there's a lot of piston wear everywhere you look. And honestly, it just didn't make sense for me to dump money, send this thing to the machine shop. The whole point of me doing a stock bottom end motor was to avoid having to go to the machine shop. So in all honesty, if I'm going to be going to the machine shop, it just doesn't make sense for me to, you know, put in stock bottom end components, especially with how cheap that, you know, forged rods and pistons are. So the more that I got to looking into everything, and once I finally made that step, I was originally gonna ditch the 5.3 and do like a forged LS3 or something, but to be honest, that was gonna change the whole build goal. It's gonna need different turbos, going to need, you know, my trans would need to be different because I'd be in a whole different power goal, so transmission would have to go to TR6060 and all that, which I still may do, but it just didn't make sense at the moment, and the time frame and the budget, you know. So anyway, the smartest route to go about it was just to do the 5.3 since I had it here, and rather than waste components. So I'm gonna stop rambling on and get to the main part of what this is. So in these boxes, it contains the new rods and pistons. They're by Summit, which is their Pro LS line of forged rods and pistons, which are, you know, pretty inexpensive for the everyday person. It's a great entry-level forged rod and piston combo. And the main reason why this appealed to me was because I've seen people run it before with success, and also the price point, along with the other fact that Summit was really the only person to have forged rods and pistons in stock at the moment. This is shot in July of 2021. In all honesty, it's been a real hassle to try to get any manufacturer to have anything in stock for forged connecting rods or forged pistons, and that's been the biggest challenge. So whenever I found out that Summit had them in stock, ready to go, you know, they'll be there in a few days, I was pretty much sold on it, knowing that it's a good product. Everything's made in the USA. You know, the quality of everything is a great fit and finish. They're not, you know, cheap looking or anything else like that, which obviously a forged rod and piston better not look cheap, but the overall material quality was pretty good. So the bore that I ended up going with for the motor is a 3.81 bore, and that puts this motor at about 330 cubic inches, which is like a 5.4 or something instead of a 5.3, but pretty much the same overall thing. In all honesty, it doesn't really add a ton of power, but it enabled me to bore it out a little bit while still keeping the thick cylinder walls that Gen 4 aluminum blocks have, which is one of the main benefits in doing it. With the car, I really didn't want to go to an iron block. As you guys saw in my garage, I have 2 iron block 6.0 sitting, and I just didn't really want to add an extra 100 pounds to the front of the car. While to a lot of people that doesn't matter, for me it was kind of a deal breaker. And the only other option was to find a 6.2 block, you know, or find a re-sleeved 5.3 block and have it bored out to whatever that I want, which was just simply out of my budget. So due to that, the 5.3 was just one of the best routes for me. So yeah, I mean, for a lot of you guys, it's kind of, I guess, maybe disappointing that I'm either getting rid of the LS3 or the fact that I'm putting in a 5.3 or it's not stock bottom end anymore. And to answer that kind of statement, it's just that, you know, it's not a lot more money to forge out the 5.3, in all honesty, in comparison to what everything is. My whole intentions with selling the old LS3 was to fund a forged motor build and do the turbos. So that's what it enabled me to do. In my mind, it was a smarter thing to do. While you can boost the stock bottom end, I've seen it done literally probably 1,000 times. As far as in my own first-hand experience, not on the YouTube videos, in person, I've seen it, plenty of dyno sessions of it being done over the boys at Horsepower Factory. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to end up doing the whole forged motor build. You can do this exact identical build with stock bottom end, and you probably 9 out of 10 will not have a problem. I've done it on this car with a very similar setup. Anyway, the Trans Am, if you look way back in the day, I've done a pretty much identical build to this with actually a Gen 4 aluminum 5.3 and everything on it for a while, and it was one of the most fun combos in that car. So, you know, I'm just doing it this time with forged rods and pistons. So enough rambling about, you know, what's going on with the motor. This is how the motor is stripped down. So if you look on the cylinder walls, everything was really glazed and just looked tired. At this point, I just decided the best route, since I already had the rods and pistons, is to send it off to the machine shop. The crank and everything was good. I know that that's probably going to be a question some people have. The crank spun over by hand without any issue. You didn't even need to use a, ratchet or anything on it whenever the pistons were out. So that was a great relief. So once I confirmed that, the next route for the motor was to go to the machine shop, which my machine shop of choice for this build is going to be Rick's Machine Shop over in Houston, Texas. And we'll probably have a clip to insert in the next video about the motor and how it's built and picking it up. The motor's already dropped off there now, so they should be making some good progress on it.